Okay, next question is from Benji Simons. Where's Benji? Wave your hand. Over here.
So how should one respond to anti-Semitism encountered in university?
Okay, so raise your hand if you are concerned about anti-Semitism on campus, given all the stories been going on in the press and the news, or anti-Zionism, feeling a bit uncomfortable. Raise your hand. So it doesn't look like it's probably about perhaps 30% of the room. Rabbi, what would you say to someone that's concerned about anti-Semitism on campus?
First thing to be aware of is this, is that generally speaking, thank God we live in an amazing society that's very, very tolerant. You can walk around the university campus with one of these on your head, and most of the time, nothing's going to happen to you at all. Most difficulty Jewish students will face on campus are not likely to come. I don't remember one incident when I was in university, and I've taught on campuses for many years. I'd struggle to count on the fingers of one hand. I'd easily have spare fingers if it was just a plain old-fashioned racist comment or anything like that. There's almost none of that, thank God. Not saying there's none of it, but there's very, very little. And that's true for all minorities. I think in general, we live in although there's plenty of horrible racism in undercurrents of British society, it's very, very much not mainstream, and universities especially. Where we may feel uncomfortable, I suspect if we were asking the people who did have their hands up, I suspect is where anti-Israel stuff, it's not become about political objection, but is like a livid, vile hatred of Israel, and by extension, people who feel emotional attachment to Israel, which is not all, but probably a large majority of Jewish students feel a connection to a Jewish homeland. And when we feel that people have this desire to destroy it or irrational hatred of it, that can be very uncomfortable. What are the best ways to respond to those? I don't think there's a single way of responding. And by the way, it changes as the geopolitical situation changes. If, God forbid, there's a war in Israel, as every so often there is, then things can become really hostile and uncomfortable on campuses. When there's years where there's relatively less conflict, things tend to simmer down and not be as much hostility. What I would say always is this. How we respond should always be, one thing to do is never be too reactive. Reaction is I get emotional, I jump, There's no point reacting. And also, I think in general, unless somebody's really threatening us, we don't need to get too agitated. Just because somebody else says something horrible, and this is true not just about anti-Zionism or anti-Semitism, about everything, you don't need to get too worked up about people being horrible to us. Having said that, there can be a more strategic, thought-through thing. If we would like people to see the Jewish people or the state of Israel or anything in a better light than they do, and we believe they are misconceived, the next thing we have to ask ourselves is, are they amenable to discussion and debate? I can't tell you how many people I've been able to, over the years, talk to about misconceptions they have about Israel or about Judaism, and have a very reasonable, rational discussion. What you have to be prepared to do is listen to people. Don't just butt in and argue. Listen to people. Work out very quickly, are they absolutely emotionally committed to the destruction of the state of Israel, in which case you've got no real conversation, or are they're principally open-minded, willing to listen, in which case listen. Don't try and listen to what bits we might even agree with, and then show why we disagree, or why I might think there's information you might not have that might give a different perspective on things. And so in many people, you can actually change their mind. If it's more about big campaigns going on and you feel strongly to get involved, the Union of Jewish Students runs a lot of campaigns that are very positive, that put forward a message of peace, of the ability of people to live together in harmony. There's a lot we can do to counter things. What I would say is this: I wouldn't just sit in a room feeling agitated. If you feel bothered, do something, but doing something doesn't mean being emotionally crazily reactive. Be thought through, work with people already doing something. There's lots of organizations now doing pro-Israel and pro-Jewish activity on campuses. Give people who don't have the information they need to have a broader view of the situation. And those who will never change their mind, I wouldn't waste too much time with. But those who are open-minded, spend time with and help correct their viewpoint.
To stay up to date with the latest JCV content, if you're on YouTube, click subscribe below the video and the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, click the like button. And under following, click see first.